I'm doing an off-the-cuff video on a thought I had earlier this morning. It was on empiricism may be a false notion. Now, this isn't some type of original proposition. Like, this has been challenged before, just as with any known philosophical concept. But I think I have a take on it that stems from all my, I guess, internal observations. So let me start off with this thing. That is that all that we assume reality to be is so malleable. It's so all-encompassing that it kind of cancels itself out. And now, when you reduce everything to its real, essence, the material plane and such, what you mostly get is just forms and appearances and apparitions of a known thing, or what would be a known thing, or what could look like something to be known, something to be apprehended but not accessible in its origins. Empiricism existed because it was a means of putting science in the context of how we could understand, how we could verifiably, at least to a standard that is accepted as, some tangibility, how we can say this is this. Red is always red, regardless of where you put it, because of the wavelength and the light, or whatever, frequency. We have a way of seeing red in any way we can make it appear. And it's there, it's here. But without those measurements, what would be of red? What kind of related systems would have to conjoin together to have a union in order to see that red has a definition that has never been considered before, because empiricism, it assumes that there is a level of tangibility and that we stick with that in order to remain consistent with what we consider reality on the physical plane. Even metaphysics, people are trying to encapsulate this otherness in the everyday language. Now, of course, that's a failure. It's a failure because, for the most part, of course, you can't truly measure. You can't measure something that is not a something that is here. It's a something, but of another kind. So with these things, you're playing around with the idea that you have the thing, but really, if you truly, really have it, then you'll be able to instantiate its being into your conception, your innate conception of your sense and your knowing. What is to be called that? What is to be a certain disposition to object and subject relations? So, really, you're playing dice. You're playing with probability of accessing a state that can hit a node within your consciousness. So really, it's all just a reflection of the other you, that is already those things. It's already picking up on what it means to represent the totality and to just shoot it out through these fragments. And even in those fragments, there is a holistic integrity that is immutable. So you can't really tell me it is certain that object that I can observe and manipulate and control is X and Y. X and Y. It's determined. It cannot be said otherwise. It's just there. You know? It's just there. It's just object there. Whatever you put on it, you are the separate thing, and that's it. But again, I think that's just fallacious. Because there are universal sets that shows you that whatever you're perceiving now is not an object in and of itself. It really is just a phenomenological representation that systemizes itself in a reasoning state. That reasoning state extends itself to a sort of, I guess, a self-explanatory proposition of, knowing is space. Okay, I'll just say that for now. I mean, this is a rough draft video, so I'm just shooting out whatever is in the residue of my mind. But yes, so that's where it all is. It's like throwing a blue frisbee at the core, trying to throw it and get to the core of the ocean and saying, yes, blue frisbee, ocean. Ocean, blue frisbee, they're both the trajectory of this object can go here and here and but then You can think about, a whole system that you're not able to see. You just make calculations on what creatures will observe it, what will it look like throughout history. Will it somehow be part of some strange metamorphosis, and blue frisbee will now be, let's make up a color, Zonus Actoroth, the logic of this thing was really made already, but it's not made in its physical, not in the metaphysical either. It's metaphysical. It's just another of, it could be observable, because theory is a potential force that could be correlated to something that is within those measurements. So it could be a metaphysical, it could be potential physical. It goes back to physical to make metaphysical more reachable, or at least it seems that way. Instead, it really just hands down to non-dualism. A non-dualistic potentiality that's always permeating. I'm also subscribed to panpsychism. Just as one thread of consciousness. When we are simply here to affirm that what we are seeing here, it is, it was, and it was not. Transitioning from here to there. You're just the object that exists to make other objects from this object real. So you're able to observe your objectiveness. And you can see that object leads to object, obviously. Like red, primary color leads to primary color. Well, and then mixed together, it's still a primary color. Like and like, a vis-a-vis. And with non-dualistic property, there's a steadfast motion. It's in this eternal realm, but we use all these things. What's eternal is here. What's finite is also in the eternal. It's object and object and object. And subject is an object, but object is just a trajectory to a core ocean, to a position that will affirm that this exists and this will not exist, because there's so much that went behind it, that there's something, like there's a non-appearance that that is the real appearance, that creates I'll call it a flow state for now, that acts as an abject abject sense, that creates this dissonance to where life creates this death because there's a necessity to expend out and annihilate the boundary that creates a thing. A thing is a past thing that is mimicking a flow, but it's really just kind of this ontological irritation, a tension between dualistic states that must be settled. Like a symbol that is going into a current so that it can be digested, then it can turn into an ideology that self-circulates, uses said objects in such a way that it creates this meta-narrative that will establish this sort of core, like, it's hard, it's there, it's tenable. It's only tenable because we made it tenable. We created a scientific mind. We created the scientific mind with what was really just nothing. We transformed and made something out of just what are bound objects. Things that are non-appearing are now bound objects. So really there is really nothing there to make some type of this is this and that's it. This is ball and that's it. You know. You know, the ocean just did some stuff, and the depths we will never, maybe not never, but you'd have to sacrifice your object existence and also the subject, because subject is just another object superimposed to make objects have a nervous type of energy, like a movement that will collapse the, you know, that somehow there's just something finite there that non-appearance, I will say, is a subject that's not an object. course. But it's a subject that can be seen as a system, but it's like a very loose system that will just keep synthesizing things, and eventually putting it in some sort of hierarchical order, because it's in a new position in space. It's always refreshing, like a vortex. And probabilistic entropic patterns come to life to show that annihilation never existed, and thus object is a futile definition, because it will imply that there was no object, even though there really was no object to begin with, because the boundaries are just artificial. So empiricism is really just game theory of how much can you bend the material to affirm that you're catching on to a non-appearance. The principle of non-appearance can act through life and death. Life and death exists here for the humans, for sentience to experience. To be determined, to be non-determined. But it's not operating on, I guess, something that could be considered and authentic is all about knowing if you're real. Okay, I will stop the video here, and that'll be that. Because, I think I would do much better if I wrote this down, of course. But I could have gone in epistemology, but I don't think so. And by the way, I'm not a university student. These are just implorations, just things I'm doing on my own thinking. Just trying to organize this shit, make the most of this, But let me know if you guys have any objections to my thought experiment, or if you have anything to add, anything. All right.